Hi there, everyone. Thanks for joining the FireScope webinar with special guest Alvaka Networks. Appreciate you making the time, and really appreciate you checking in on the FireScope new series. Let's move on to the agenda. So what we'd like to do is make this an interactive format. I've got a couple of guests and we're going to try and talk back and forwards and ask questions of each other to make this more engaging. But also there's a way for you as the audience to pop in and out of the webinar by sending us chats, any questions you might have. And what we'll do is we'll ask them during the session if it makes sense and if time allows. If not, we promise to get back to you via email, whatever question you may ask. So please engage. We will record the session and we'll have it up on the website, and I'll send it to you via email later on after the webinar, and I'll also include a PDF of the slides. So now what I'd like to do is introduce Unnar Gardarsson, who's joined us from a CTO of Alvaka Networks. And Unnar has nearly 25 years of experience helping clients and customers make the best out they can to deliver services to their business. So lots and lots of wealth and knowledges across certifications in HIPAA, ITAR and ITIL, and many more. Plus he's very passionate about dogs, so you could even ask questions about how to look after 5 dogs. Amazing. And then Ken Adamson, our product manager, joined us at the start of the year. And Ken is steering the ship around the product and helping our developers deliver what's right at the right time. Ken's many years experience also both at service providers like CSS and Proficio, but also a number of years at CA Technologies, now Broadcom, and he steered the ship as well for Unified Monitor back in the Nimsoft days. But again, please send us your chats, but let's get on with the show. Over to you, Unnar.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time. This is Unnar with Alvaka Networks. So who is Alvaka? We are a managed service provider out of Irvine, California. We've been in business since 1982. We're 100% US-based personnel. We don't outsource to India or anything like that, or any offshoring. Today, I think we're going to focus on kind of 3 of the services that Alvaka delivers. We do have quite a catalog of services that fall into the managed service category, but today we're going to talk about monitoring, we're going to talk about patching, and we're going to talk about disaster recovery. So Alvaka's monitoring services, just kind of going on the slide here, we're designed for mid-market and enterprise companies. We're staffed 24/7 in the US, and we utilize a number of enterprise level tool sets. If I kind of go back, I can kind of run through. We started out back in the early 90s, I want to say, with ManageWise back in the Novell days. Went to ZenWorks, and we ran Tivoli IT Director, I believe that's an IBM product. We've run Landesk, we've run BMC Patrol, Nimsoft, which then became UIM, and then most recently we've migrated to, or in the process of migrating to, FireScope from the CA UIM product. Anyway, using those tools, we monitor it. Customers come in and ask me, can you monitor? And I stop them right there and say yes. It's basically, if it has an IP address on the network, we can monitor whatever it is you need to have monitored. Server, storage, CPU, memory, hypervisors, any application, anything that generates a log file. Basically, if it has an IP address on the network, we can monitor it. If in some cases we end up with custom requirements, so for example, one client asked us to build a specific type of monitoring around a VIA phone system, and so using the tool sets that we have in place, they're highly flexible, so we can really customize and build just about any monitoring solution you want, and then be able to provide metrics and report on it. One of the things that we do a little different is our customized runbooks. We don't force our customers through a cookie cutter, here's an escalation plan, here's how we handle A, B, and C. It's really dictated by the customer, and then we design a plan internally and document and follow based on your requirements as the customer. And that could be anything from, who do you alert, in what order, do you involve, the software provider, manufacturer, and or development staff, or is it a runbook that talks about how to bring a certain service back online? So highly custom, highly flexible, can kind of do whatever you want there. We are also, I think we're the first in the nation to achieve the CompTIA Security Plus certification. So where that comes in handy is anytime you have scenarios where you require regulatory compliance of some sort, whether it be HIPAA or SOX or DFARS or ITAR or whatever it may be. 9 times out of 10, we show up with the Security Plus Trust Mark, and that kind of ends any discussion around providing anything around compliance. So it's a very, very valuable certification to have. We've gone through it a couple of times. It's a pretty laborious process, but it certainly is worth it. So let's see. So we can provide some cost advantages by leveraging the shared investment in the enterprise tools. All you guys know, this is these management tools are not inexpensive, and then running them around the clock and staffing an operations center for customers that require after hours, or maybe they're in multiple time zones and need to be able to have somebody watching all the time. It's a big investment. So we can kind of leverage that and share that cost across many customers. We don't require any capital investment or upfront fees. There's basically you come in and there's a menu of services. I want patch management, I want monitoring, I want antivirus, I want this, and it's an a la carte menu, and we plug it in and turn it on. We've got about 20 plus years of experience specifically in managed services. So there's a lot of operational maturity, a lot of process and procedures that have been molded over the years and made us very efficient at what we do. So we can do a lot with few human resources, if you will. Let's go next slide. So the second service I wanted to focus on is our patch management. I picked patching and disaster recovery kind of because it seems like we're in the what I would call the age of ransomware. Recently, there seems to be every month or two we get a major incident of somebody having been crypto locked or some other form of crypto malware, and it essentially becomes a hostage rescue situation. So two of the services that we leverage to help kind of mitigate those is patching, and then disaster recovery. We'll come to disaster recovery next. But what we do is basically we onboard your servers, your workstations, your Windows, Linux, Mac, whatever flavor it is, and we go through with you go through a process of when do we want to patch, how often do you want to patch. Some customers like us to patch weekly, some let us do it once a month, and we have to get everything done in a 4-hour window. We can get pretty flexible and creative with that. One example would be a global customer in 8 time zones with, I want to say it was just under 1,000 servers, and we start patching in China and work our way through the Middle East and through the UK and the rest of Europe, and then we end up on the East Coast, and we literally follow it through to LA and end there. In the process there, we do we put a lot of effort and fun smoke testing. So anybody can click a button to deploy a patch. Now, what do you do when that patch is delivered and something is broken, or you don't even know it's broken because you haven't tested it? So we spend a lot of time working out what is it that we need to test after a patch job to give it the clear and move on to the next thing, and then from there on, what is the escalation path, or what is the resolution to bring that service back online? So that kind of ties back to the runbooks that I mentioned earlier. In the scenario that I just mentioned with the customer in the multiple time zones, I think we had 56 business critical applications that had to be tested. And we literally walk through with the client every single application. We take screenshots and then we design, whether they be scripts or monitoring creativities that help check and validate those things, or at the end of the day, maybe a person has to log in and do something. Every one of those things is covered and documented to the T. We have the ability to roll back patches. If there is a problem, it's really, really rare that we have to do that, but every now and then there's a patch that causes some issue, and more often than not, we can kind of click a button and undo it, and you're back in business. Of course, if that's not the resolution, one of the things that's not on here is we take a great deal of time and work with you as well, your backup and your snapshot strategies, particularly around the patch job, so that if a patch rollback doesn't resolve it quickly or some other resolution doesn't resolve it quickly, we can revert to a snapshot and kind of regroup and how do we attack that patch going forward. And then at the end of the patch job, there's reporting. Different people have different requirements. We've learned that a lot of people are looking for compliance specific reporting, so we put a lot of time and effort into defining what those should look like. The other thing about the patch service is it gives us the ability to export and look at your full software, hardware, your services, inventories. You can then do reporting based on, software licensing usage or requirements and things like that. So all that data becomes available as part of the patch service to help you kind of better manage your assets and inventories. On our disaster recovery, this is kind of the third iteration of our DR work service. What we do here is we put an appliance into the environment, and then that appliance takes images of your servers, and we can then dedupe and compress those images. They're encrypted during the image process, so there's the data that is the snapshot that's taken is never leaves your server unencrypted, if you will. That's important for some people for data being encrypted at rest and during transit and such. So with that appliance in place, we can now do certain things, like you can go to a web interface and mount a backup and then restore your files. You can recover a failed server on the appliance and run it in a production mode in the environment, and then migrate it back to it, do a bare metal restore or restore back to a hypervisor. Your recovery time, our backup windows, snapshot windows can be as short as 15 minutes. All of that is kind of done on a server by server basis. We determine with the customer what is the most appropriate backup frequency and such. Then once we have that appliance on site and we have all your servers images and the snapshots you're running, we then take that data encrypted and send it off site to we'll call it a vault out on the cloud. And within that vault, if, let's say, worst case scenario, your whole building is out or your data center is out completely, we can then restore your entire infrastructure in the cloud and provide access to that via VPN or terminal services, remote desktop, or any other means. One other point about the offsite replication is that we can, I don't know a lot of people can do this, but we can replicate that data to multiple offsite repositories. So some customers we have will have a repository in the cloud, and then they'll have a vault, we call these, at one of their other locations, geographically separate from corporate, for example, where they'll replicate the entire data set over there as well. So, multiple copies of your data in multiple geographic locations, replicated up to date every 15 minutes. Very easy. Let's see. So for that service, again, we have no capital investment required. We provide the product, we provide the process, we walk you through and do all the design of how it's going to work, and we provide the appliances on the cloud investment. The other thing we do is backups. For anyone that's had to go and restore from a backup, it's always kind of a hairy situation. You just don't know what you're going to get, especially if it's from tape. So for what we do is every day we actually mount every backup and we spin it up. This is an option. There's a checkbox. You can spin up your virtual machine and take a screenshot to prove that it's restorable and bootable. So we can provide that as well. And then as far as restoration, whether it's file restoration or the full VM, turning it on and running in a production environment, it's literally a 3-click operation. You select the snapshot, you click mount, you tell it whether you want it to mount it in a sandbox mode or in a production mode. Sandbox means it mounts it in a firewalled environment locally to the appliance, so you could do testing and whatnot without bringing up another computer on the network with the same name and IP address. Anyway, so that lets you then, with 3 clicks, you can be back in business within 5 minutes on a failed server. Very, very simple to use.
All right.
Is that you?
That's me. Thank you very much, Unnar. And I appreciate you sharing your services. And while we kind of go through my slides, I'm going to ask you some questions, kind of be interactive here as well. But I'm going to break for a commercial here. So FireScope, is the trusted provider of visibility and intelligence for connected assets. And these assets actually deliver the world's business. And these are business services we're talking about, services that are supported by infrastructure such as network devices, servers, applications, etc. We have coverage across the globe. And in the Americas, we are headquartered in Huntington Beach, and we also have our development team in Dallas, Texas. And of course, we have a presence in EMEA and Asia Pac, and a number of different customers across different markets, including finance, healthcare, and of course, managed service providers, which we have, Alvaka on the line today discussing that. So let's talk a little bit about the FireScope platform. Then we're going to kind of dive into why Alvaka chose FireScope. But the FireScope platform is a SaaS platform. It's multi-tenant, and that's one of the reasons why Alvaka, chose us, because we are truly multi-tenant. So they're able to not only manage their own environment, but other customers' environments and do that securely. Our primary focus here is asset discovery and dependency mapping. And we go out there and discover those assets, but we also map the dependencies between those assets. And that's one of the things we'll focus on today is, what does that mean, and why is that a differentiator, and why did Alvaka choose us? We also do infrastructure performance monitoring. So, Unnar mentioned Alvaka monitors, CPU, disk, memory. You can monitor applications. So we do that as well. And this monitoring helps us identify issues that are going on with a critical business service, et cetera. So we can provide full-fledged monitoring of all the infrastructure, whether it be network devices, virtual, physical servers, applications, log files, you name it, we can do it. But I guess what's also important is the ability to integrate with a CMDB and to be that federated solution for your CMDB. So the ability to be able to discover those assets from multiple sources, and of course be able to federate that information into your favorite CMDB solution. We also integrate with IT service management and IT asset management products that are out there. So IT service management, things like Sharewell and ServiceNow, for example, where we can not only update the configuration items in the CMDB, but we can also open cases, for example, for servers that are having issues, or we can open a case for a change that occurs in a dependency in a business service, for example. And then, of course, provide real-time alerting. So whether that be a real-time alerting to your NOC, real-time alerting to your favorite managed service provider like Alvaka, real-time alerting is there, of course, to alert of a particular issue that needs to be addressed and something needs to be fixed. And most of the use cases that we see out there for FireScope are around asset lifecycle management. So just managing that lifecycle of the asset from the day one of purchase all the way through, managing it out of life or end of life. And then, of course, change management. That is identifying changes that occur in the assets, changes that occur in the dependencies, changes that occur, in the network, the virtualization layer, and so forth. And of course, just federating your CMDB, capacity planning. So identifying, infrastructure that, might be reaching a capacity, whether that's a storage capacity, CPU, memory capacity, or even network capacity. And any other capacity you might want to monitor, we actually can monitor that and tell you things like, days to capacity, and even predict and project that for you. And of course, the ability to intelligently migrate your business services from your data center to the cloud. There's a lot of that migration going on these days, and moving the workloads from the data center to the cloud, and our ability to discover the service and all the business services that you're running, as well as all the layers, the application, the virtualization, the storage, all those layers we can discover, helps to identify all the assets that are involved in a business service and then migrate them to the cloud. So that's an overview of FireScope. Let's quickly go over the architecture of FireScope, and then we'll dive into specifically what were the great things that kind of convinced Alvaka to move forward with FireScope and replace UIM. So the first thing is FireScope is a SaaS platform. It runs in the cloud, of course. The platform itself does the normalization, the aggregation, the deduplication, all of that data and all the business logic actually exists in the cloud. From the FireScope platform, your NOC, as you can see at the top of the screen, your NOC, an MSP, or even your MSP customers can access, dashboards. They can access the alarm console. They can manage the entire environment. They can register edge devices, etc. On the right-hand side, we have our integration points. Of course, our integration via API to ITSM solutions, CMDB solutions. We do bi-directional synchronization between those products. So we're able to update it, maybe create a case inside of, I don't know, ServiceNow, for example, get a case number and bring it back into FireScope. And then also the ability to alert, right? Do real-time alerting on changes, real-time alerting on performance issues, availability issues with your service, and help you restore that service as quickly as possible. On the left-hand side is how we collect the data. So we have what we call FireScope edges, or collectors, that sit in your data center. They can sit in the cloud or remote site, and each of these FireScope edges can even sit at an MSP customer site as well. Now you can have one or more per customer of these edge devices. These edge devices will sit locally, with your infrastructure, and they will collect information from the infrastructure and securely send it to the FireScope platform. And we only do outbound communication. It's all secure via SSL. We never contact the edge. We never actually contact the edge. The edge actually contacts us, and FireScope and asks, what its next, task should be, and then runs those tasks. So again, we never will contact that edge. Now, the edge does a number of things. Number one, it pulls all the infrastructure with using, protocols like SNMP to, talk to your network devices to look at performance, do asset discovery. It uses WMI. It uses Secure Shell for Unix and Linux systems to both monitor and discover, these systems. So, for example, we might use SNMP to discover network connectivity all the way down to layer 2 to determine, how devices are connected to a switch or a virtual switch, for example. But we also do things like, we have agents that can be installed on servers. It's an optional agent or agentless solution. So you can put an agent on servers, and these agents can do a number of things. They can monitor local log files. They can even, restore services. They can restore processes if they go down, and a number of other things they can do. So we have that capability. And finally, the flows. So if you have network devices that support NetFlow, SFlow, you can have these network devices forward flows to the edge device. And this is really where the magic starts to happen, because now we start to identify and discover anything that communicates on the network, we're going to find, and any changes on that network, we're going to see. So we're going to move on to the next slide here. And after we've got all the flows in and we're discovering all the assets, the traffic list is a place you can go within the product and look at the traffic and see the source of the traffic. So you can see the IP, the DNS name there. You can see the port number that's being used to communicate, and also some traffic information, like how much traffic is occurring between the source and the target. And this is great because this information is just the sort of the packet header information. We don't actually look at anything deeper than the source, the port, the amount of traffic between the target and the source, and we pick up this information. This is used to actually identify relationships or dependencies between these devices. So let's take a look at the next slide, and this is what we call the service entry point. This is where we have seen a number of systems out there, and you can see that we've suggested a starting point to create a business service or a service group. And you can see that this first IP address, the 10.0.22.7.1, we're seeing a lot of activity on port 80. So it's a web server, and there's over 1,200 clients that are connecting to this web server. This is probably a very good, starting point to create a business service. Now, what's a business service, you might ask? And a business service is a group of infrastructure components. It's a group of servers, network devices, storage devices, virtualization, all of that. Anything that is participating in delivering a business critical service, either to your customers or for an internal task that has to be performed. So with that, when you select one of these entry points, you can now build a business service. Now, here's where I want to get Unnar involved. So Unnar, I remember when we first showed this to you, this was one of the aha moments that you said, wow, this is why, FireScope was, again, jumped to the lead of all the other vendors you were looking at. It jumped to the lead. So why don't you just sort of describe, when you saw this map, what did you see here?
I'm getting goosebumps right now. So I remember the moment that this slide came up and I got chills. So having been in this industry for a long time now and having run all the different tools and what have you, the common problem I seem to have over the years is there's just not enough visibility into the network. Anybody can show you there's this much data going across this port, but they don't tell you what protocols, they don't tell you what ports, they don't tell you the source, the destination, they don't tell you really any of this data right here. This is stuff we would have to put together manually through, and typically would involve a level 3 engineer to do this accurately. The fact that I can, at the click of a button, have this visibility into the traffic that's going across my network gives me so many options for now if I want to focus on security. How do I do my internal firewalling? I can literally block anything that isn't supposed to be running on that network by using these types of maps. So this is invaluable information to somebody like us.
Oh, that's perfect. So I appreciate that. Now, this is just sort of the application layer, right? Which is important, right? To understand, the servers communicating to each other, the clients communicating to the servers, and so forth. As you can see the port numbers, etc. But we also identify changes, right? And you can see that dotted line there, the red dotted line, indicates a change. So this is what we call a baseline service map. And when you baseline a service map, you're essentially taking a snapshot in time and you're saying, okay, that's right, this is the way the service should look. If there's any changes to that particular service, we can notify you of that change. And it's not only just at the application layer, though. Let's take a look at the next slide, and Unnar, I want you to kind of describe what you felt when you saw this slide here.
So just looking at the little bubbles here, it kind of helps illustrate what this all means. So quickly you can identify your single points of failure. You can identify what virtual hosts are, what hosts are hosting what VMs and what those VMs are talking to. The you know, and again, the dashed lines, you get the dotted line for any time there's a change in the baseline. This is something new that somebody should investigate. I mean, there's so much value in this image right here that I could spend the day just analyzing all this and making sure that my network is configured the way it should be, that it's locked down and secure the way I want it to be, and that the things that are talking to the various hosts on the network are appropriate.
All right, fantastic. I appreciate that. Now, yeah.
Question came in about the colors of the lines. Is there any significance in the colors? We see some are shaded, some are looks like orange.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So the difference in the colors represents the type of dependency. If you look at, for example, if you can see my mouse, I'm pointing at this network device where the single point of failure is. The green connections represent a network connection, so or a network dependency. So all these devices that are connected to this one device, if this one device goes down, there's a big problem. The purple indicates a virtualization dependency, and you can see there's the host, and you got your VMs associated with that. Here's another virtual dependency, a host and a VM. I think the yellow actually represents storage dependency. So you can see the storage dependencies there as well. And then of course we have a purple dependency, and again, that's also virtualization. The blue represents the application dependency, or the ports communicating between the various devices and servers. So on this one view, you have application, network, virtualization, and storage layers all in one view. And I challenge anybody to come up with another solution that can actually do this, because I haven't seen it. But this is where, you know, the value is, right? Because now I have a clear picture of this business service, which I can now monitor for any changes, and I have a clear picture of a service that I might have to migrate to the cloud, and now I know all the dependencies. So if I forget to migrate a particular device, if I didn't have the solution, I could be in big trouble, right? So now I have a full picture, and I can even monitor any changes. So if there's any software updates, or someone makes an authorized or an unauthorized change, I'm able to see those changes and either approve those changes to the baseline, or I can reject them and start to investigate those changes right away, because it could indicate a security threat. It could indicate that an unauthorized change has been made, and it could be actually impacting my ability to deliver services to my customers.
This also just the ability for the MSPs out there to walk into an environment which any MSP knows that when you walk into a new client, they almost guaranteed don't have a diagram or virtually any documentation. The fact that you can within minutes literally diagram out the network and have a starting point for that documentation, as well as the value this provides in network assessments. So if you're doing an assessment for a customer, you can now really go a lot deeper than I think typical assessments will go in terms of what's really going on in the network layers of the traffic on your network.
Perfect. All right. Next, so I think if we sort of summarize, Alvaka Networks here, that we kind of looked at the problem. We looked at the problem of too many tools, the complexity of the tools, trying to consolidate those tools to save money on, licensing and so forth. And the solution, of course, was the FireScope platform, where we have both passive and active discovery. That passive discovery enabling us to look at the application layer and identify any changes that might occur from a communication standpoint, and then better insight just on the network, the application, the virtualization, and the storage layers of a business service in a single map or a single solution. And then maybe Unnar, you can kind of close on why, why FireScope won against the other competition you were looking at.
Yeah, there's several reasons. I would say, if I start with the basic, the fact that it's a SaaS solution, I wanted to get out of the business of having my NOC staff running the infrastructure, if you will. So let them focus on the customers. So I can now kind of offload the running of the engine to FireScope and then let my guys focus on running of the customers and our NOC staff. We don't have the cost of the infrastructure, the colo, the service warranty, you name it. And the fact that the FireScope solution does everything and then some on top of our what 2 or 3 different solutions provide today, with a roadmap that's going to take us into a lot more cloud capabilities and such. It clearly was way ahead of the 12 or 15 other solutions that we were looking at leading up to this decision.
So Unnar, I just want to, talk about one thing that you and I discussed, and you and I have known each other for about 15 years now, but one thing that we discussed, I believe even prior to you guys, making a decision is that the landscape's changing, right? We're looking at a very complex, cloud environments where the traditional monitoring tools just aren't going to cut it. The ability to, go and discover nodes and systems, but having to do that actively isn't fast enough, right, for the ever-changing environment, especially when new VMs are spun up instantaneously to handle load and things like that. So you also mentioned that because we have that passive discovery capability and ability to detect changes, that that's really the way the direction and the market is going. So can you kind of explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, I mean, I could take a couple of examples with existing clients that we have today where, one of them, for example, has a very dynamic environment in terms of today there's 400 production servers, tomorrow there might be 6,000, and they kind of expand their loads into, AWS or whatever their cloud provider is. The ability to kind of flex with that kind of an environment, I see that as a huge advantage. And 2, the asset discovery piece. This is probably the single biggest problem I hear when I go talk to other MSPs out there, or even direct clients. Nobody really understands or knows what they have on the network. And a good example of this is I got called into a kind of a ransomware extraction scenario where the client said we have this many sites in these countries. There's about 11,000 assets globally. By the time I was done, we had discovered just over 40,000 devices on the network. So just provides invaluable insight into being able to document what's actually there.
All right, fantastic. Thanks for that, Unnar. And yeah, Unnar, you want to take over from here?
Let's see. My slide went away. Oh, okay. So we have a couple of trial kind of things that we can do. If anybody's interested in trying Patchworks, we've got a promo going, kind of a 2-for-1, buy one get one. We will work with you and decide, quantities, how and when to patch, and all those. Basically, walk you through the whole process of onboarding you as a customer, so you can see how that all works. And then for the DR works, the disaster recovery, we'll work with you. It says here conditions apply. Obviously, we can't go in and as a demo, back up and replicate 1,000 servers or whatever. But we'll work with you to come up with a scope that satisfies, and then work out how that demo should look. And we'll do a 30-day trial, put the appliance in, replicate it to the cloud, let you spin them up, do restores and things like that. And then we have some upcoming events. On September 17th, there's a security breach roundtable, and on the 18th we have a lunch. I believe this is a lunch and learn. I might be incorrect, but we kind of do a cross between a lunch and learn where people come in house, and it's a webinar. So we're doing that on the 18th. Patch management, a priority in your security strategy, and then see our event page for more, I guess.
Great. Chris.
Hey, thanks, Ken. Thanks, Unnar. So thanks for stepping us through why you bought FireScope. So big offer to everybody out there. Please, why don't you step into the car, as it were, sign up for free, and run and drive for yourself. we'll be happy to sit next to you and help you through the process. Or just go to this website, free trial at firescope.com, and just sign up. We'll create a tenant for you, and we'll send you an email with where to go get the edge device. So we'd be happy to help you through it, or you can take it home for the weekend, as they say. But anyway, what I'd like to do is just thank everybody who's out there who has attended. Really, really appreciate you sitting in on this first, what I would call a customer first webinar. We have a number of clients out there that are trying to decide whether to switch out UIM or SolarWinds or Tivoli or whatever. And I think it's wonderful to hear from a customer who's gone through that process, hear it firsthand, and understand why they purchased FireScope. There's many different reasons. So we're going to try and do more of these. So thanks a lot for attending. And a big thank you to you, Unnar, for stepping up and going through this with us. I know it's very different than being a CTO and stepping in front of clients, but much, much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Our pleasure, anytime. And if you ever need us at one of your events, please just holler. And Ken, thank you so much for steering the ship and getting us to those great slides about how we're unique over our competitors. Very much appreciated. Thanks, everyone. Just checking now. Actually, there's a question came up just as I was chatting. Ken, you may be able to talk about this, but there was a question about, or we can take it offline, about licensing. Can an MSP use this for their assessments if they're not going to use it internally, as it were? Can they use it for their assessments and business reviews with their clients?
Well, yeah, I mean, we had Unnar talk about using it for assessments. And we can certainly talk about this offline if that's only what you want to use it for as assessments. Now, what we'd love for you to do, of course, is leave the solution behind and entice the customer to continue the service. So we can talk about options there. And if you don't mind, just make sure that we have your contact information. We can talk more about that. But we'd love to talk to you about that specifically.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, great way to get started with the product without a full investment. Anyway, we're signing off now. Remember, I'll send the recording to everybody who's attended and those that registered, along with the PDFs. And thanks again, Unnar. Thanks again, Ken. Everybody else, have a great evening, day, and look after yourselves. Cheers.
Thanks.